Welcome to the Cult Film Showdown's special series, Controversial Saturday Morning Cartoons. I am James Cotta, bringing you through this adventure into 80s and 90s R-rated properties that were redone as Saturday morning style kids cartoons. I am joined on this adventure by Nick Boxer.
Heyo, here we go. I like Richard Pryor.
And Jack Hall, what kind of pebbles are you eating today? Is it the cocoa? Is it the fruity?
Fruity,
Fruity,
it's fruity. Oh yeah.
They got a new kind now too. They've got it's a mixed berry or something. It's a representation. They got Betty and Wilma on the front of that one. I think it's great.
Well, you know what? That's blasphemy.
As political correctness run amok.
I'm sick of this woke culture.
I don't know. I'm more on that than Yummy Mummy or Fruit Brute.
I still remember Boo Berries. That was the best.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a good cereal.
No, but it turned your stuff blue.
That's true. I mean, that's a strong argument there. All right. That's a way to get out of school one day. Mom, I don't know what's happening, but
eating Count Chocula and claiming it turned your shit brown really didn't work quite as well as I had planned.
That's the story didn't.
Wait a second. Hold on. Your shit's brown?
Jack's is just like chalk white like a dog's.
Yeah, that's right. Make yourself see doctor.
So,
it's the beginnings of the shows, these ramblings, that I think keep people coming back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's addictive. It's everyone wants to see the train wreck.
Cold opens, as we call them in the business.
Nice. Well, speaking of cold, we are talking about a very forgotten kids show from this era called Pryor's Place, 1984 to 1985, starring Richard Pryor. Jack, tell us how this thing happened.
Oh, I don't know how it happened. I'll tell you this. You had the probably most famously profane comedian of his era that was beloved by kids. Because in the 80s, kids loved a clown, and he was a clown. And he did have some movies that he did that were PG and such. So kids did have a chance to see him and love him. But most of his material, all of his material, and stand-up is concerned, was it's shocking by today's standards still.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, 1984. Well, maybe it's less shocking in 1984 because today everything shocks us. But hey, so the fact is that this, Richard Pryor, though, had gone through his struggles at this point, his addictions, his, incident with fire, and where he caught on fire and everything, and was trying to be a family man, trying to be a good man, and wanted to do this kids show. And he ended up hooking up with Marty and Sid and Marty Krofft, the Krofft brothers, legendary Krofft brothers, who in the 70s did a bunch of shows, Land of the Lost probably being the best known one. They ended up their Lifetime Achievement Award in the Daytime Emmys was in 2009, given to them by Will Ferrell, who of course starred in the Land of the Lost movie, 2009. So they ended up hooking up with him, and this combination of a little bit of Richard Pryor's 70s variety show on NBC that lasted only a few episodes before getting canceled because it was way too controversial for them. So there's a little bit of that vibe. There's a little bit of the Kroft Brothers vibe and the puppets and that type of thing, from those Canadian puppeteers, the Kroft Brothers. And there's a little bit of Sesame Street vibe, and it makes for, I don't know what the hell it makes for, to be honest with you, based on the first episode, but it's interesting. I'll give it this. It's up by the official Richard Pryor channel on YouTube, and the video quality is amazing.
Oh, terrific.
Compared to what we're used to seeing on a lot of these things. So I'll give it that.
And he was at an interesting point in his career, because like a lot more kids had seen him right around then, because he had done The Toy.
The Toy was, I think, 82, wasn't it?
Toy was 82. Superman 3 was 83. So
83, yeah.
like, and then Brewster's Millions, which is one of the movies, like, it's not a great movie,
but
it's one of the ones that 85. Yeah, it's not a great movie, but I was at the age where, like, I had that one recorded on a VHS tape, so I saw it like 50 times.
Man, as a kid, I watched The Toy 100 times just because it was on.
Yeah, it hasn't aged well in a concept that a rich white man buys Richard Pryor as a toy for his kid to play with. That concept does not age well at all. But it was him and Jackie Gleason, and
What a weird ass movie.
At the time, I don't think anybody thought anything of it, but by about a decade later, it was pretty bad. It was already in pretty bad shape about a decade later, and now it's 4 decades later, and it really does look bad. What gets me about this thing is, well, first off, I guess we should have Nick explain the actual episode we watched.
Mm-hmm.
This is the second episode. It's not the pilot, but it is the first episode that aired. So the pilot aired as the second episode. So this is, well, Nick, what is it?
Yeah, good question. We start out with a little talk from Richard Pryor himself. He starts to tell a story which results in bullying is bad and bullies are bad, and how you deal with bullies. Then we get a little bit with puppets, and then we get a reenactment of Richard Pryor as a kid dealing with a bully. Meatrack, I believe it was his name.
Great name.
The story sort of consists of a kid, Richard Pryor, walking around the neighborhood and adults ignoring the problem of bullying or downright condoning it. He talks to a bum, and he talks to the newspaper seller, and really gets some bad advice from everybody, and no sympathy whatsoever, because the bully's going to beat him up at 5 o'clock. We get a little fantasy sequence where Richard Pryor turns into Superman, which is kind of neat. And then we get the big showdown, which consists of basically Richard Pryor getting beat up, I guess.
Oh no!
Yeah, that's all that
happens. He stands up to the kid, and then all the other kids stand with him, and then the bully runs away.
Yeah, but I didn't even believe that. I mean, they even said, you're probably going to get beat up in this situation. I don't know. I didn't find the resolution all that convincing. It was a very silly show. I did like, I don't remember from this episode, but I did like they had Ray Park Jr., the guy who did the Ghostbusters theme, sing the song at the start of each episode.
And the end. End. He's in the start and the end, in the credits, singing the episodes, and it's a great little song by Ray Parker Jr.
I also watched one with Sammy Davis Jr. It was nice seeing them, but on a whole, the tone of this is. I remember really hating shows like this when I was a kid. Because, I mean, they're making Rocky jokes. Like, no kid is getting these jokes.
Oh, yeah, they are.
No kid is appreciating all the pimp costumes coming out.
Kids are getting Rocky jokes, though.
I did like the joke where the puppet called Richard Pryor's kid version Pussy Cat.
That was awesome.
It's the only one we're doing that's not a cartoon. It does have Muppets, so and it is aimed towards children. It largely revolves around a moral story like this. There are some episodes like you have a lot of great guest stars coming up in it, like you said, Sammy Davis Jr., Lily Tomlin, and Robin Williams is another one that makes an appearance in the show. So I mean, they tried, and he called in his friends and favors. What it is really, to me, lacking is it's just not that funny. And Richard Pryor is insanely funny, and it was like he didn't know how to do. He dumbed it down too much for kids, and instead of just doing something funny and assuming that the kids would get it, he made it really, really safe and really, really dumbed down for them, and it doesn't land, and that's the shame of it.
Yeah, Pryor narrates this with a very soft, whispery. In my neighborhood, there was a kid called Meatrack, and it sounds like it's like storytelling. Like it's almost like he's reading a fable, but it's like kind of condescending at the same time. It's
yeah.
And I've seen him do that. I saw him. He did that voice in stand up and stuff. It was a voice it was an affected voice that he had, but it did have like this kind of cringy after school special thing, as opposed to like Richard Pryor was doing it as like a community service project. My wife Lacey came through the room while I was listening to it, and Richard Pryor was doing his narration in that style. And my wife said, "Is this an ASMR video?"
Well, you watch a lot of those. No, I mean, like I say, it's largely about the moral. It's a little bit of Sesame Street thrown into this thing. They do have an episode where little Richie is trying to smuggle a alien home or something like that, like E.T. or something. But for the most part, it's things that are, like his friend Amanda tells him a dark secret, and then that's the plot of the show. And it's like they're trying to be relevant. It's trying to do something. I appreciate the effort that they're trying to do good, but they just needed to make it funny, and that's where they missed.
I had never watched this show, never saw any of it, but I remember as a comic book reading kid that they had like a 2-page spread for like the whole summer promoting Richard Pryor and like the whole animated lineup that they had that year. And I don't think I ever connected that it was a TV show. I just thought that they had Richard Pryor as a spokesperson for the lineup. I never connected he had his own show. So I finally answered a question from when I was 10 about why Richard Pryor was in these ads.
Well, I remember I thought the same thing and the same disconnect, but I also watched the time block it was in, and I don't remember this show watching the show. I remember watching Land of the Lost, which played the other half of the hour. But I
think it actually replaced
I don't remember this existing outside of that.
Land of the Lost replaced it. When it went off air, Land of the Lost replaced it in the time slot, 11:30 on I believe it was the 11:30 time slot on CBS. But yeah, when it because it only had 13 episodes, so Land of the Lost replaced it.
Yeah, September to December it ran. I want to get back to something Nick was talked about in his summary there, that little Richie, knowing the time and place of his death, goes around talking to people in the neighborhood, trying to figure out his options. And one of the adults he talks to tells him what the betting odds are. And another one tells him you start running now, you'll probably keep running. And then when it actually comes time for the fight, for the big confrontation, there's a bunch of kids there, like you'd expect. And there's a couple of adults, which you don't expect. And there's a friggin' cop standing there watching.
I never noticed.
He's like in the
That's
background.
awesome.
Never mentioned. He's like there's a uniform cop. I know it was the 80s, but this still seems a bit too much to just hang around and make sure it doesn't go too far, I guess. This like older kid beating up a small child. 3-on-1. There's Officer Schmitty saying, "Yeah, I'll just see how this plays out." It's probably fine.
Well, like you say, it was the 80s.
Richard Pryor's childhood is well documented as not being good in any sense. I think that
this is a sanitized version. A very sanitized version.
Yeah, but I think the reason it doesn't hit is there's nothing real in it, which is that's where Pryor's humor comes from, is realism. And when you sanitize something that he didn't have already, it just feels so false and forced. Didn't help that the puppets were kind of ugly too.
It does harm the reality of the piece to have the puppets and Richard Pryor show up as in costume as several different characters. I'll give you that.
But none of them funny. Like there's that character he plays that sells the newspapers or whatever, or no, that plays the saxophone.
Yeah.
And so he's sitting there playing the saxophone, and the joke is when like a crook runs by that he plays the saxophone, the crook stops and goes and gives him some money. And then, the same thing happens with the cop when the cop is chasing him, stops and he plays a little bit of music. And I'm like, Richard Pryor knows funny. He should know this is not particularly like, it's weak. It's weak sauce is what it is.
Did anyone else wonder why the Rastafarian was from New Orleans?
I was wondering that, yes. Yes. He's got this accent, and then he says he's from New Orleans.
Don't get me wrong. A Rastafarian can have come from New Orleans. I just thought it was a weird choice.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little early. I mean, later they'll come from Brooklyn. So him doing that Rastafarian character, I'm like, I mean, Richard Pryor, obviously not a white guy doing this, but it still feels a little racist.
It does, doesn't it?
I mean, you can't call it on it, but still, like, it's a little bit. It's like doing too much of an Irish accent. Like it's a little bit.
The funny thing is about Richard Pryor is it's not like, I mean, we talk about how he used a lot of obscenities, different colorful phrases, but it's not like he needed that to be funny. He was funny in movies where he was, like Silver Streak, where he was not using a lot of profanity, or just his while it was controversial for the time, is still very funny, extremely funny. You should watch it on YouTube. If you haven't seen it, his variety show that he had on NBC in, I think it was 1977. Right. And he doesn't have to be. So it's not like it's because he's clean and he doesn't have that crutch that you're like, that's why it's not working. It's just not working because it's just not working.
Yeah, I tried to allude to this earlier, but I didn't quite get my point across, I don't think. There are certain people just that can't talk to kids for whatever reason. And I think Richard Pryor just didn't get it.
Could be. I mean, he had kids. That doesn't mean he was good at talking to them.
Yeah.
Nick, any toy line from this show?
No, not that I could find.
just
No, there was no toy line from the show, though. I bet you if it had been a big hit, there would have been, because you would have seen more of the different Muppets, and they would have,
right.
or puppets. I mean, and they would have definitely had some, but it didn't last long enough.
Because rat and bread puppets are a good idea.
Oh yeah. Well, the candle that burns half as bright burns 4 times as long, or something like that. All right. Any last thoughts on Pryor's Place? It does sound like some of them are worth taking a glance at, and you said they're up in an official way on YouTube. So surf through for your favorite guest star, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it might be interesting to go back and watch and see Robin Williams on there, because he could connect to kids and would have no problem being funny, and that may work and stuff like that, So I mean, it could be interesting, but to watch certain clips of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any other thoughts I have?
Sort of agree. I thought I was going to come in here with a hot take or something that it wasn't hitting for me, and you guys would, oh, you're insane. Like, this is awesome. I not find positive things to say.
Part of the thing I do think is, as I'm watching it, is this is the second episode, like you say, first one to air, but the second episode, it feels like the type of show which could take like 6 episodes to find its rhythm, like that it might get better and find its rhythm, and that they didn't quite know what direction to go in or what to lean in yet, and that maybe so that's a possibility, but I don't have the stamina to watch them to find out.
Yeah, this might be one of those times that you want to jump ahead to just episode 6 or something, and see what's what, rather than try to muscle through a whole bunch of them. All right.
So I did have something else to add, though.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Chuck Norris doesn't cheat death. He beat it fair and square. There, now I'm done.
All right. Well, we'll be back next time with part 9 of our 10-part series of controversial Saturday morning cartoons-ish. And next time, also some folks from just a couple of years later that do not seem to be belonging on Saturday morning. Kid and Play from 1990 is our next thing to look at. We are the Cult Film Showdown. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Patreon, and you can support our work as we start thinking about what we do after this series. You can also find us on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, watch any number of our vast archive of episodes. And we are sponsored by WeTalkPodcast.com, the home of the Octagon, our search for the ultimate B movie. And We Talk Podcasts has a Twitter, and they have a Facebook. And I have some Kid and Play to watch. We decide that next time.
And what's after that? Then Kid and Play, and then Police Academy to wrap the season. Is that it?
We went back and forth at Police Academy. Tales from the Crypt Keeper is our finale.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Police Academy is rated R. So
I
was wondering.
That was I remember that was being in our debate, but it came down to only the first one's rated R.
This is true.
By the time the cartoon came around, they were doing PGs. So, but it was on the long list. We'll say it was on the long list of nominees.
I'm gonna watch the Police Academy cartoon. I don't care. It's for the show. I'm gonna watch the damn thing.
Well, put it on. We'll put it on as an extra. We'll.
All right.
Now I want to watch it too. Yeah. We'll just call it audible, and next episode will be Kid and Play, and Police Academy, the series. And maybe the first Police Academy. We'll see how we do.
If we did the first Police Academy, that'd be a lot of fun. There's a movie I could talk about for a while.
It's way dirtier than you remember, is what I'll say about Police Academy. All right. We'll talk to you next time.